Welcome back to the Main Street Meets Wall Street podcast. I'm your host, Marcus Sturgeon Sr. Every week we perform the audit. We look at the data coming out of the Federal Reserve, the macro trends moving the S&P 500, small business owners' challenges, and we ask the only question that matters. How does this impact your ledger? We see the headlines every day: inflation, interest rate shifts, and consumer uncertainty. But the truth is, the natural economy picture is often just noise for the entrepreneur who doesn't have a strategy to capture the value. Today, we're moving beyond that noise. I'm joined by Derek Kinney, the voice behind the Good Money Revolution and a regular authority on Fox Business. We aren't just talking about money, we're talking about institutionalizing your purpose. We're going to break down how to distinguish between economic volatility and opportunity, and why the Main Street agenda is the only operating system that will allow you to survive and thrive in the 2026 more economy. Derek, welcome to the show. To get us started, when you look at the disconnect between the headline data we see on the news and the reality of small business owners managing their own cash flow, what's the biggest noise they need to filter out today?
Marcus, first of all, thanks for having me. I've been excited to be on your show, and I'm excited about this conversation. You know, what people need to filter out is what actually matters to me in my life. I like to say there's the economy, and then there's people's personal economy. And ultimately, people's personal economy is all that matters. You know, we hear about inflation and job loss numbers and the war in Iraq and gas prices and all these things, but ultimately, can I still retire? Can I still go out with friends on Friday night? Can I pay for my kids' soccer lessons? All the things that matter are in people's personal economy. And so what I tell people is, as an advisor, as an entrepreneur, you want to not just think about what the news is, but you want to be a news interpreter in terms of what does this news mean to your exact clients. So when I was an advisor, I sold my business about 5 years ago. People would come in the office, Derek, I see employment's high, inflation's high. What does this mean? They'd get into a panic, and then we'd boil it down. Well, what does this actually mean to your 401k or to your goals for retirement or to your ability to buy that business? And actually it was very little because those were things out of their control. But when we realized, okay, here's the things you can control of making more money, saving more money, setting clear goals on what you want, then they became empowered that even in the midst of all this uncertainty, focusing on their personal economy gave them certainty and, more importantly, simplicity.
Great explanation. Just to even dig a little bit deeper into that, so what were some of the specific questions they were asking you when they were coming there?
Well, first of all, Derek, what does inflation mean? You know, what do the unemployment numbers mean? What does it mean when our country is at war with somebody else and gas prices go up? How does all this work? Because people want to know, how does it affect my money? There's one radio station that everybody listens to, and it's WIIFM, which stands for What's in It for Me. Ultimately, it's our favorite station. We listen to it 24/7. And so what I would tell people is, you know, listen, if you're complaining about gas prices, what about if you were pumping gas and you owned some of the companies that invested in gas? Well, now you might be cussing the gas price, but you're cheering the stock price. So there's a way to counteract that. And so I would tell people, and they're like, oh my gosh, I hadn't even thought about that. And so what we look at is, you can choose to burn brain cells and complain about things you can't control, or you can say, based on these economic trends and how they affect my personal economy, how can I benefit from them? There's always a way to make money when other people are worried about possibly losing money. And so that's what I would tell people is, look, if we know the market's going to be volatile, then let's shift our strategy over here. That way, even in the midst of all the worry and all the uncertainty, people feel like they have a plan. And that's what I would say the key word is. There's a lot of four-letter words out there, Marcus, but the best one is PLAN. When people feel like they have a plan, even in the midst of all the uncertainty, it reduces their worry. It dramatically reduces their anxiety and makes them feel like they're making progress, even in areas that they can't control.
Yeah, that's a great explanation. I think what folks don't realize is that radio station you're talking about, WIFM. That's larger than what people consume the most now. What, YouTube and
That's
Disney?
right.
That's the largest channel in the world. It's not just on radio. It's serious. It's everything, right? That's really where people do have to think, like, your personal balance sheet. And I love how you mentioned the fact that if you're at the gas pump and you're like, I'm at this, and all right, so everyone already knows we're not making any stock recommendations. We're just talking because you have to get into a personal relationship with someone to make a stock recommendation. But the gas station down the street for me has Exxon. So if I'm pumping Exxon gas, man, do I own some Exxon? Do I own Exxon stock? I get Amazon Prime delivered to my house so often. Even if you don't understand stocks or valuations, if you're getting a bunch of Amazon, maybe you should look at buying some Amazon stock, like owning what you're investing in. Um, we're going to get back to that deep stuff a little bit more. I love do you want to expand a little bit more on that?
Well, it's funny. As you said that, I was just thinking about a stock. I always, when I work with my clients, I always like to tell a story about their investments. For most people like you and I, we love managing money. We love investing money, making money. But a lot of people shockingly don't care. And so what I would do is I would tell people a story about their investments to make them more interested in the process. And so I'm not recommending this, but this was a great example. It paid a really good dividend. There was a preferred stock back in the day called Grant Metropolitan. Back then, it paid like a 9% dividend. I'm not recommending it, but I'm just saying back in the day, it worked really well. But what was cool was what it invested in. So it invested in Hagen-Dazs ice cream and Schmirnoff vodka among two of its holdings. And I would tell people this is the classic investment where on days where the stock market's going down, you're going to like that Smirnoff vodka. On days when it's going up, you're going to love that Hagen-Dazs ice cream to celebrate. And it made it personal. People like, oh, Derek, how's that Hagen-Dazs Smirnoff vodka investment doing? And so when people can name the investment with something fun about it, now you brought them into something that they care about. But the key is so many advisors bury their head in the sand when there's bad news going on. And what I find is when you can predict the bad news, doesn't mean you're going to say exactly the date, but you just want to have a conversation around, let's be proactive. And if the time comes where the U.S. is at war with somebody or we see higher inflation, a lot of volatility, here's the game plan of what we will do. So when people know that and hear you say that, you become viewed as this proactive, empathetic, highly caring financial advisor that has the four-letter word plan that people want. You don't have to know when they're going to happen or if it's going to happen, but just the fact that you're talking about, here's what worries me right now. Here's what I'm concerned about. When you're happy about everything, people don't always have the urgency to keep working with you. I tell advisors every visit that you have with a client, whether it's on Zoom or in person, you want to say the words, now, there's something else I'm worried about on your behalf right now. You see, you become the paid worrier that they want to keep paying because you care for them and are walking alongside them, helping them avoid the costly mistakes and save money that they don't want to have happen to them.
Man, I'm glad you did expand upon that. Like you said, a lot of people, especially like financial advisors, don't even want to bring up worry. They're just trying to get out of that meeting with that
That's
client. You know what I
right.
mean? But you are supposed to bring up that kind of stuff, right? Like, what can I do better for you? However you want to frame it, right? How can I improve my service for you? What are you looking for? But that comes with the expectations at the beginning too, as well. When you set up these relationships, speaking to clients, I know you don't have clients anymore per se because you sold your business for like an 8-figure exit, I think. But that's this is. Let's go back to the beginning. Let's take folks back and just walk back through to. I imagine you had the 110, 3, 1, dials back in the day. Or did you dial and smile? Is that how you got into the business? Let's take it back. Just take it back through Kinney's memory lane.
Oh, take it back.
Take us
Wow.
back.
Yeah. So I had a problem when I became a financial advisor. I was 26. I looked like I was 13. I had no natural market. I had no gray hair. I had no wrinkles. But what I had, Marcus, was a passion for supporting local education. And so I had this crazy idea. I went back to my alma mater high school, Sam Houston High School here in Arlington, where I still live today. And I brought a $50 Amazon gift card for the teacher and a $25 Amazon gift card for the student. And I began to do a Teacher and Student of the Month award at my local high school. And I would give to the teacher a certificate and the gift card and let them know how much we appreciated them, and give the gift card and a certificate to the student, letting them know that they've got a big, bright future ahead. And we get a picture taken with the student, the teacher, the principal, and myself. And back in the day, we put this in the newspaper, kind of cutting edge technology back then. And I began to get phone calls about 6 months later. And what one woman said to me shocked me, and it completely changed how I thought about my business. She said, Derek, we know you're new, we know you're young, but we want you to be our financial advisor. And what she said next just changed the entire business philosophy I had. She said, Derek, we want to work with you because you care about what we care about. You care about what we care about. And it was in that moment I realized I didn't have to be the smartest or the best looking or the most well connected. I just had to care about what my ideal clients cared about. And it was like this weight lifted off my shoulders. And what I realized was I then began to do this at all the local high schools, even some of the junior highs and elementary schools. And it was on the cheap. But what I found was people that have money want to work with people who are giving back to the local community. And what happens is it gives them elevated status. In other words, if I'm busy, but I care about the community, but I can't be involved because of my schedule, I feel like I'm part of something bigger by working with Marcus, who is involved in his local community. And so as an advisor, so many times you're told you've got to give the $10,000 gift to the symphony, you've got to make the $50,000 donation to the Museum of Art. Nope. I was bringing in $1 million clients with $75 a month. And what I realized was two things. If there's two takeaways you have from our time together today, number one is when you have a cause that you care about, it's like a magnet that attracts people to you. So I like to say when you connect a cause to your cash and meaning to your money and purpose to your profits, it drives you to go make more money so you can do more good. And then people want to work with you because they're part of something bigger. Then the second part is own a painful problem. So many advisors sound and look like everybody else, and they sell based on their features and benefits of their products and services. And what I tell people is when you own a problem, you own your success. You want to identify who's your ideal client, what is the painful problem they struggle with or worry about, and that you help fix that. When you do that, you have a cause you care about and a problem that you own, you become virtually irresistible to high net worth people because they feel understood by you. They're like, finally, somebody gets me. Somebody understands what I've been thinking about and worrying about, and they're involved in the community. And by the way, everybody loves supporting education and helping kids. It's a no-lose proposition.
Yeah, that's great stuff, man. Especially like you said, those last few points, like what people can you say that the three statements you said, and then
Mhm.
the 2 points.
Yeah.
Can you reiterate
When you
those
when
one more
you
time?
Sure. When you connect meaning to your money and purpose to your profits and a cause to your cash, now would motivate you to do more good and go make more money so you can do more good with it. You see, one of the biggest issues that advisors have is oftentimes, and I was guilty of this, so I'm speaking with all vulnerability here. I wanted a bulging bank account. I wanted to build a multi-million-dollar business. And I began to do that. And I looked around and realized nobody's here with me. I'm saying no to everybody else, even myself, to pursue this goal. And that led to me feeling burned out. And so the antidote to burnout is find a cause you care about and let that motivate you to go grow your business so you can give more money to the cause you care about. And then let the people in your community know when you work with us, you're part of something bigger and you're helping make a difference in this cause. It attracts people to you. And then the second is own a problem. When you own a problem, you own your success. So, for example, it might be, you know how so many people worry about running out of money in retirement? We help them fix that. You know how doctors are great with their patients, but their finances need a prescription for help? We help them fix that. You know how so many hardworking women have a sudden life event, a divorce, a death, a job loss, and suddenly they feel stuck? We help them fix that. You see, when you own a problem that your ideal client instantly understands and says, yes, that's exactly what I'm worried about, and you say it in words that a third grader can understand, now people say to themselves, that's the person I've been looking for. That's the person that gets my pain.
Pain points, yeah, people with pain points and your money, like, people aren't even thinking about these things, and then you're just brushing the surface. So you suggest, like, finding one thing maybe for your whole niche, like, that's your pain point, this is your ideal client. People don't so there's a lot of conversations in niche, like how deep down a person should go into their niche, or just how people can tell people what they do, right? So if I was to walk up to you, and I think you kind of were, I think you were beginning to say that. If I was to walk up to you and say, "Hey, Derek, let's go back, not what you do right now, but what you did when you were a financial advisor," because I know, like, I know if you don't know how to deliver this to people, they just pretty much don't even want to talk to you anymore if you say I'm a financial advisor, right? Even if you're not trying to be like, even if you're not seeking them to work with them, if you just
Right.
tell them what you do, I'm a financial planner, I'm a financial advisor. But if you can frame it like you said, I help people with. So when did you realize that framing worked? Because that was before you started your own business, right? And how would you frame it if someone asked you?
Well, where this happened was I had a big problem as a young financial advisor. Is when I would say to someone, I'm a financial advisor, when they ask me, what do I do? Their eyes would glaze over. They'd start to walk backwards. They'd murmur something under their breath like, I already have enough insurance. You sell mutual funds. I was like, what's happening here? And I used to cringe thinking when people would ask, Derek, what do you do? So I would ask them a lot of questions. But what I realized was until you connect with pain, then you're not going to be memorable. Memorable people make the most money. And most importantly, if you want to make it rain, connect with pain. If you want to make it rain, connect with pain. And so I just got fed up. And so let me give you an example. Marcus, let's say that you are at a social event in your local community. You've got your favorite beverage in your hand and you're mingling around the room at this event. And a man walks up and asks, hey, what do you do? And you reply, well, I'm a financial advisor. He says, oh, okay. And you ask, well, what do you do? And he says, well, you know how busy professionals, they want to get into shape, but we help them do that. Oh, okay. And then you ask a few other questions, have a conversation. And later on in the evening, a woman walks up and says, hey, what do you do for a living? And you reply, well, I'm a financial advisor. She says, oh, okay. And you ask, well, what do you do? She says, you know how busy business owners, they always put others' needs above their own, so their health takes a back seat? We custom tailor workout and eating plans so they can feel good, but most importantly, they can look great. So one day they can be the cool grandparent that has the energy to chase their grandkids across the floor. We specialize in personal training for busy professionals. Now pause. Now let's say that 1 week goes by and you look in the mirror and you say to yourself, I think I need a personal trainer. Which one would you call, Marcus? Would you call the man or would you call the woman?
Yeah, I would call the one who told me exactly what they're going to do so I can help my grandchildren, right? Like, I want to run with my grandchildren, stay healthier for life. That woman definitely broke it down. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
That's,
so funny that what you just said there, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
you're good.
What you said is what people connect with. It's like, I want to be the cool grandparent that has the energy to chase my grandkids across the floor. Now, if we pull back, both trainers are probably equally qualified, equal experience, will probably do an equally good job. But one used better words to connect with the instantly relatable pain points that you have. And so, again, if you want to make it rain, connect with pain. And so the formula that I've created, I call this my you know how framework. So psychologically, when you say to someone, you know how, well, just those words infer to the person that they will know what you're about to tell them. So it opens this mental door of, okay, I'm about to get what you're about to share. Does that make sense, Marcus?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
You're
what you want
triggering, you're anchoring them.
That's right. So what you want to think about then is, and this is that there's three sentences, but the first sentence is really your express lane to success. And that is put the words down here. You know how, then insert who your ideal client is, and then the words worries about or struggles with, and then insert the instantly relatable problem, period. We help fix that. So, for example, I was working with a coaching client recently, and he said, Derek, my primary audience are corporate professionals who make good money, but they're worried about when they can retire. What should I say? And he came up with like 10 things to say. And when you talk about too many things, you bore people and you lose people's interest. What we know is if you're asking me to burn any brain cells to figure out what you're saying, you lose. You're causing me to have to figure it out and I move on to the next thing. Instead, you want to say it as though a third grader can understand it. So in his case, we talked about, you know how hardworking corporate professionals, they make good money, but they're worried about having enough money to be able to retire? As I slightly nod my head, we help them fix that. Oh, he said his client engagement went up dramatically, and new clients that he brought on were up about 45% in the first 3 months that we worked together. Because number one, it gave him confidence of what to say, but it also clearly spelled out the pain point that hardworking corporate professionals who make good money but worry about having enough money to retirement worry about, because it's easily stated and nobody has to figure out, now what is he talking about? So if you want to make it rain, connect with pain.
There you go. Find the local pain point in your area, find the people who are connected with it, and then get that structured intro. Just practice it, practice it, practice it. So did you come up in a time where like scripts were heavy when you first started?
Yeah. When I first became an advisor, we had an entire script and that we practiced, and it was really well done. What I found though was that you needed to know it so well that it sounded conversational. You know, one of the things, even when I teach my how framework, well, Derek, this feels like it's going to sound scripted. But actually, the more that you say it and it's in your words in real time, you can actually see people's responses. Now, Marcus, I want to share something very important here. And it's really critical for, I think, an advisor who may be listening or watching right now who feels stuck. Like they know they're better than where their current revenue numbers are, but they're not there. And that is, so often we would reply financial advisor just to get it out and get it done. And what I realized is when I answered, I'm a financial advisor, I'm a wealth manager, I'm a dream funder, whatever you want to say, I knew what was going to happen. I would get a closed door. But when I connected with a pain point, people began to lean in and say, tell me more. And I had to do something to change my own behavior because my tendency was just to say financial advisor. Now, this is going to sound crazy. I like to eat. And so what I said is, if any time somebody asks you, what do you do? And I reply financial advisor, I have to skip my next meal. I didn't want to skip my next meal. But what that gave me was I had to get okay with owning 7 to 10 seconds of verbal real estate. And what that means is when I say, oh, I'm a financial advisor, that's like 2 seconds, answers out. But instead, I've got to be willing to lean in and say, and this was my, how phrasing that I came up with for me as an advisor. It's very effective. Marcus, you know how so many people, they worry about running out of money in retirement? We help them fix that. You see, that took about 8 seconds to say, but I gave myself ownership of these 8 seconds, if said with empathy and a little bit lower and just a little bit slower, it automatically causes people to say, this person really knows what they're talking about. I need to lean in and hear what they're saying. And what often happens then is if those words land well, they say, well, now, so what do you do? And then the second line is describing your process. So the first line is the problem. The second line is your process. And so I would say, we have a 5-step framework where we custom tailor a strategy for each client so they don't run out of money, so that they feel confident. And then, oh, wow. Then I always add the third line, which is the specialty line. We specialize in retirement income planning. You see, you
Uh,
say it as though you're the doctor who literally has the medicine for their financial pain. And there's a point I don't want people to miss, and that is when you're in a critical conversation. Have you ever been asked a question, Marcus, and you're caught by surprise or something was asked you weren't expecting? But what happens is often people's voices go higher and they talk faster and they instantly sound nervous and anxious and less confident. So instead, I say when someone asks you a question you're not expecting or you're in a high stakes conversation, you want to communicate like you cook a brisket, low and slow. So you want to talk a little bit lower and just a little bit slower, and instantly you sound more authoritative and empathetic and like you know what you're talking about. So, for example, if I were to say to you, I'll do it two ways. You can close your eyes and see if you pick up on the difference here. You know how so many people worry about running out of money in retirement? We help them fix that. A. B. You know how so many people they worry about running out of money in retirement? We help them fix that. Now, could you sense a difference between the two ways I said the exact same words?
I mean, it's almost like when you said the second time, like, I believe that you can help me fix that. And you believe you can help me fix that. As with the
Uh-huh.
first time you said, it's like, oh, I mean, maybe he's someone there can help fix that, but I don't know if he's the one who can do it. Like,
Right. I like how you said that. And so part of this is simply practicing, but ultimately you have to ask yourself one question. And you've got to be honest with yourself. Of all the advisors in your local community, should clients work with anybody besides you? And how you answer that question will then give you the confidence to own 7 to 10 seconds of verbal real estate when you answer the question, so what do you do? Because those 7 to 10 seconds will leave somebody and say, I'm going to close the door, or lean in and say, tell me more. And memorable people make the most money.
yeah, that's very memorable as well. And when people speak and then you slow down the tone and you're forcing people to lean in and listen to you. You were talking earlier about the Sullivan nod you were doing when you're saying stuff to people, you're nodding yourself. Yes. I like to liken it to I I coach, like, some little kids in basketball, and you've seen how little kids miss layups. Big
Right.
kids do it too.
Right.
I'll tell them it's like, you go fast, you're running fast if you're dribbling or whatever till you get that ball. When you get that ball, you're still going fast, but when you get ready to shoot that ball, you gotta slow down. That's when you slow down
Yes.
and take the
Yes.
shot, and it'll work out. Another thing I like to tell with basketball is, like, when you get the ball, slow down because everybody else is watching you pretty much. Like, you're in control when you have the ball, right? So take your
Yes.
time, like, and that's pretty much what you were saying with the second one. Like, you're taking your time. Everyone's watching what you're going to do. Game 7, we've had several game 7s in playoffs this NBA season. It's interesting to hear it. And the way you said it, like I said, when you close your eyes and listen, the second one's even better. Derek, I want to talk a little bit. So you were an advisor. Yeah, we got your website up over here. You were an advisor and you stopped being an advisor to clients and you became an advisor to advisors. Can we go? How did you get there?
That's right. Good way to put that. Yeah. So to go back a little bit, every year I go on a yearly sabbatical. I take about 5 days completely by myself to think and pray and journal. And I ask myself three questions. Number one, how do I be a better husband? Number two, how do I be a better father? And number three, how do I be a better business owner? Okay. Now, the reason I began to do this was about 15 years earlier. I've always had a type A personality. I move really, really fast and I get easily distracted. And what I realized was I can run really, really fast, but if I'm not clear on exactly what I'm running fast toward, I'm running fast in a circle. And that was not getting me the results that I wanted. And what I realized was if I could take 5 days, basically a week, to get clear on what I'm going to run fast toward, now I can run really fast the other 51 weeks out of the year and hit the target and achieve what I want. And so I like to go by the water typically. So I was in Boston at the W Hotel there on the wharf. And I asked myself those questions in July of 2019. And I've been feeling this for a while, like, what's next? I call this Derek 2.0. And I began to write a list out of all the things that I would like to do. Just dreamy, blank canvas, canceling the voices that have said you'd be a failure at this, you can't do this, this is something new. And I wrote down some crazy things like write a book, launch a podcast, coach, speak, consult. Could I build another business that had the same level of recurring revenue as my financial planning business? And I realized in that moment, that was my moment to leave being a financial advisor and move on to Derek 2.0 because I could monetize the business I built. But what was most important to me was not just handing off my clients, I wanted to hand them up. That was very important. And so one of the hardest things, just being completely transparent here, Marcus, that I ever did was I called each of our clients personally to let them know that I was selling the business. And this took about 2 months for me to
Ooh.
do, okay? And most of the people were excited for me. They said, "Derek, you get to do what you've helped us do." They were celebrating with me. But some people were angry. There was just a handful of people, a couple people actually cussed me out a little bit.
What?
I can't believe you're abandoning us. You made a promise that you would help us retire. Here you're leaving before we retire." And I was able to calm them down. But one lady, Marcus, summarized it the best. She said, "Derek, if you're going to have a midlife crisis, just buy a Corvette. It's a whole lot cheaper." But so I started this. It was the first week of January 2020, right before COVID started.
Goodness.
And I made my last call the middle of February. And I remember, thinking about it now brings it all back. The moment I made that last call and I hung up, I began to weep like a baby. It was like all this emotion that I had just experienced, doing the hard thing, calling the people I loved that I'd walked alongside, my team had walked alongside through marriages and sometimes family members that had passed away and new jobs and achieving goals and seeing their kids grow and weddings and all the things. And I was choosing to say goodbye to that to go to what else I wanted was so hard. But what I realized was to be the best advisor legitimately, because I prided myself on being like the best advisor in my local area. But I had to tell myself, I now need to find a better advisor than me to hand my clients up to. Because the win was no longer them saying, "Derek, you're the best advisor ever. Who did you give us to?" But a year later, them saying, "Wow, Derek, we liked you, but we really like so and so." And it was like eating a big slice of humble pie because that was the goal. And that actually happened. And that it's been 5 years now, and I'm still in the local community. I still see a lot of these people, but the transition went very, very well. And so for me to sleep at night, it wasn't just a transaction, which financially I did very, very well on, but it was knowing and having the peace of mind that when my head hit the pillow, that I helped these people improve their lives, help them make money, save money, and that was part of my legacy was giving them a better advisor than I was.
Oh man, that's powerful. That's great motivation. Like, just think that you realize that you need to take time to set the agenda before you just go fast. People say if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together.
That is
Type
right.
situation, right? Um, so you are you still in 2.0 or are we in 3.0? Which iteration are we in?
Yeah, I'm still 2.0. And, there's a lesson I learned, and I've been learning this, is at first I began to create some things that I thought were going to be what worked. And I learned this lesson about a year and a half ago, and that is a lot of the ideas in my mind I thought were perfect because Derek thought of them. Of course, they're going to be great, right? I built a successful business. Everything else will be equally successful. What I learned is what I call the focus group principle. And that is what I now do is I'll take ideas in my mind and I'll say them to other people and see if it resonates, if it connects, and then how they say it back to me is my reality. Because it doesn't matter what I think is true. If three or more people tell me something about me or an idea that's whatever, then that is true. So for example, when our kids were younger, my son, my youngest son, would come in our bathroom as he got ready for school and ask, "Hey, do I look good in this?" And my wife and I would say, "Yeah, yeah, you look fine." He said, "You always say that. You're my parents." And I said, "You know what? Go ask your sisters. Ask your sisters if you look good in that." And so he'd go back and he'd ask his sisters. Yeah, they said I look, but I don't like this color. I said, "Dylan, let me give you a simple life and business lesson. When it doesn't matter what color you think you look good in. If other people say you look good in it, then that's the color you want to wear. And especially if the girls say you look good in the color, that's the color you want to wear." Okay. But the point was the focus group principle. In your mind, you may think it should go or sound or look a certain way, but it's how people say it back to you that is reality. And so, for example, when I began to do the work I'm doing, I built this communication framework. How can you simply say the words that cause high net worth people to want to work with you? And a trusted voice I ran this by said, "Oh, Derek, you're like the client conversation guy. You should be at every main event to complement all the technical stuff. You give people the exact soft skills of how to connect with people on the human level." And when he said, "You're the client conversation guy," I just began to adopt that. I hadn't heard that before, but in his words, it made sense. So that's the lesson is take your idea, but let other people tell you how to implement your idea. It saves you a lot of time and a lot of money.
Man, that's very cool. That's good stuff. And it's I love how your purpose is and how you listen. That's what people aren't doing enough of, in my opinion. Like we have two ears, one mouth for a reason. It seems like you listen
That's
to what
right.
people say and then you actually apply it, like you were telling your son what looks good. It's clearly by you wear, for those who don't know, you wear some loud stuff, man. You're like what was my Craig Sager? You remember Craig Sager, how he wore
Oh,
loud stuff on the
right, right,
sidelines?
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you bring that to the financial advisory community. It's great, man. I love it. That was, for those who don't know,
Thanks, man.
I was doing an episode with Kevin Thompson, former New York Yankee. He now has an RIA down in Texas as well. And we were talking about introducing, how you introduce people. And he was like, I can't remember his name. I'm thinking of his name. I'm thinking of his name. He wears the loud stuff. I was like, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. I say he doesn't wear pants. No, no, no. Derek probably has those shorts sitting over here now. Like, but I
That's
say this
fine.
because he shares his
I
stuff.
am wearing pants today, so you're good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I say this because he shares his stuff. Derek's really, uh, I like to say prolific on LinkedIn. I don't know how he would describe it. But like Derek says some good stuff. I'm showing his LinkedIn right now. We're talking about business owners and some of the struggles. I saw this post this morning that you made. It's coming up. Sorry, it's a little latency, about following up. Because when you tell your story like this, people probably think that every time you approach someone, your close rate's 100%. And you know what I mean? Like, no one's close rate is 100%. So you can see the post, right? You
Yes,
can see the
yes. Yeah,
post,
I see it
Derek.
there. Yep.
So just break down like how resilient you have to be and how like people should realize that it takes more than one conversation. Like people probably think that the conversation you had gets you a client. There's more to it than that.
Well, yeah. Well, it's interesting. Let me go back 1 second. A trusted friend of mine pulled me aside at Future Proof. We were talking, and he said, "Derek, on the outside, you make everything look easy, like everything is successful for you. You need to be more open about the mistakes and how hard it actually is." And I had to take a deep breath when he said that, and it prompted me to really change my content to be more relatable. Because ultimately, you like to be able to show, hey, here's the result you want to get. But when you can walk with people like, here's a struggle that I had, and here's what I did, and here's how you can do it and save time that it took me, that's a quality post. And that's where this came from. So, for example, at the very bottom, there's a screenshot of the email that I was referred to a company to speak, and we'd had some dialogues, and then it went cold. And I'm like, well, man, what do I need to do? And so I just tested a new approach, and I just simply replied, "Have you given up on having me speak?" Question mark, send in reply to the last email 30 days earlier. That was like at 5 something in the afternoon. And then the next morning at 9 a.m. or so, I get a reply back, as you can see, "Oh no, we absolutely haven't given up on you. It's just this, just this." And so two things here. In my mind, they're ghosting me. I can't believe they're doing this. How rude of them. They weren't even thinking about me. It wasn't malicious at all. They just didn't have an opportunity. Therefore, they pressed pause. But in my own mind, I began to make up a story of like, I can't believe this. And so by being very direct with, have you given up on, it's so direct, it elicits an immediate response. And so then the conversation restarted. We're back talking instead of doing speaking, some more live sales events, webinars for their team. And so it just got the ball rolling. So what I find is don't always think about malicious intent. Well, this person is really not wanting to visit with me. They must be upset with me. No, they may be busy. Their kids might be having challenges at school. Their parents may be struggling. They've got an issue at the job. All of that stuff is in their minds. But when you just call them out and say in a nice way, hey, have you given up on? And you want to insert the concern they shared with you, like they're really worried about their stock options and how to handle. Hey, have you given up on an effective stock option strategy? Question mark. Your name. Send. Typically you're going to get a response, and it's going to inform you as to what their situation is. Then you can take the next step. Oh, you know what? So I'm so glad. What advisors tell me is like 90% of the time, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you reached out to me. I completely forgot about this. You've been stewing about them for a month, thinking they're out to get you and avoiding you. You weren't even on their mental radar. So it's up to you just to take this very short snip. I just like to be very direct with people.
Mhm.
And the more direct you are, most people beat around the bush. They say words that don't mean anything. You have to burn brain cells to figure it out. When you go direct, it typically leads to dollars and opportunities.
Y Direct leads to dollars. You have a lot of good sayings, man. I like
Thank
these
you,
things.
man.
Derekisms, I know times we're supposed
Derekisms.
yeah, Derekisms. I do have a couple more, topics I wanna cover with you, man. Just because, like you said, you're pretty, industry leading. You do a lot of speaking, you go out to speak at events, like, future proof, your own local and national TV, international TV, I guess. But for someone, a financial advisor, because this is your bread and butter, helping financial advisors who there's someone who's like, I'm doing good work for my clients, but I just feel like I'm being overlooked. Like, what can I do differently?
Yeah. Well, this was my personal problem. And that's why it's very personal to me. So, if you're being honest, you might ask yourself, well, why is that person working with that advisor? They're not as smart as me. They're not as good as me, but still the client is working with someone other than you. What did that person do? And what I've realized is they connected with a pain point that person has, is ultimately what they did. Most advisors make this fatal mistake. I'm going to wow high net worth prospects with the features and benefits of the products and services that I offer. We've got this new high yield savings account. We've got this new insurance policy. We've got this new investment strategy. The reality is all of those are what I like to call commodities. They all sound the same, all look the same. You might have a temporary feature or benefit, but ultimately other companies catch up. And so if that's the game you're playing, you're going to lose. And then the other game people play is, well, you know what? I need to compete on price. I'm going to charge less on AUM than the people down the street. And ultimately, that's like having a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house that you're trying to rent out, and there's 5 other rentals that have the exact same floor plan. How do you win? Only on price. High net worth people don't base a decision to manage and build a relationship with someone to help them grow their wealth based on price. They don't. They base it on, does this person get me? Does this person understand me? And finally, someone connects with exactly what keeps me awake at night. I'll tell you a quick story. I had a 24-year-old that I was coaching, and the backstory is a recognized advisor around the country. You know the person's name if I said it. Called in a favor. He said, Derek, I've got a 24-year-old advisor who is struggling to attract higher net worth clients and any clients at all. Can you help her? And so I did a couple coaching sessions, and I asked her, I said, when someone asks you, what do? What do you say? And she said, well, I say I'm a financial advisor. I'm a CFP. Within our firm, we have over, 500 years of experience, et cetera, et cetera. And she said, when I say those words, it's like the people are judging me. It's like they're thinking to themselves, are you even old enough to
Oh,
invest
no.
money? She said it was crushing her confidence. Now, this firm focused on business owners and professionals and entrepreneurs. And so this was on a Thursday, and they had this big event on Saturday night. And so I began to practice with her what to say instead when asked, what do you do for a living? So I get this call from her Monday morning, excited, feels like a different person. She says, Derek, you're not going to believe this. I did exactly what you said to do, and I want to share with you what happened. So she said, probably she's 24. She thinks the guy was probably 55 or 60, mingling around the room, asked her, hey, what do you do? And she was like, Derek, I felt my heart rate go up a little bit. And she said, okay, Derek, just as you said, I began to communicate like I cook a brisket, low and slow. And she said, you know how so many entrepreneurs, what keeps them awake at night is the thought of what they work so hard to build. Their kids are not going to know what to do with it. We help them fix that. She said, Derek, the guy's eyes got as big as saucers. He was like, that's exactly what I'm worried about. And she said, this is going to sound funny, but I'm 24. The reason the firm pursued me so hard is because I'm the youngest person here. And guess what? Your kids and your grandkids that eventually you'll pass your business to, who will they listen to better? You or someone my age? And the guy started laughing. Oh my gosh. He set up an appointment the next week, rolled over about $10 million.
To the
Okay.
24-year-old?
Yeah, to the 24-year-old and the firm to help that 24-year-old walk alongside his kids and grandkids who he wanted to help coach them and prepare them to one day take over their business. So what we learned was so many advisors today talk about wealth transfer. How do we keep the money once the second spouse passes away? 90% of the time, it goes out the door. When you bring in these young advisors, so many advisors think I've got to train them, take 10 years to learn our system. Instead, let their age be their superpower, not a liability. She before was like hiding behind, I don't want to say I'm 24, I have no experience. We found a way to help make her age her superpower. And so when you bring in these younger advisors, position them as, look, we know that you've built a great business. You have this big inheritance that you may leave down the road. We want to make sure that your kids and grandsons are prepared to manage your money and grow this business. So you've built a legacy. And that concept is what attracted them to work with that firm.
Oh, man, that's beautiful. That's how many advisors do you think you've helped so far?
Well, I mean, I speak all around the country. I mean, speaking for me is what I love. Being in front of a live audience, and then when there's that line of advisors that form, even leaders, hey, can you speak at another event? Can you do this? And then they ask questions, or can you coach me? These kind of things. I mean, it's thousands. But there's a secret that I have, and this can help other speakers, but also other advisors. When I step on stage, even when I go on TV, if I'm on Fox News or CNBC or even local TV, I always think about one person. Who's the one person in that audience that I'm speaking to? How old are they? What concerns do they have right now? And what can I say to that person to give them just a quarter twist, just enough to get to their next big revenue goal? As I say from stage, I'm not here to change your life. I'm not here to change your entire business plan. I'm here to give you the simple steps that lead to big results. And so when I think about one advisor, like right now, who I'm talking to is somebody who they're hungry to grow, but they feel like a Lamborghini stuck in city traffic. They might be in that maybe that 250 to 750 range. And they're like, I can't break out of this. I want to get to the million. I want to get to 2.5 million. What are they doing that I'm not doing and I should be doing? They're not better than me. They're not smarter than me. And it's typically those two things. When you own a problem, you own your success, and you have a cause you care about, you attract people to want to work with you. Those two simple things, I've helped coach a lot of advisors to become top 1% advisors when they begin to know what is the problem they own and how to say the words that connect instantly with people's pain points. When you do that, everybody else becomes irrelevant. and you become the specialist that people want to pay. And we know people pay more to work with a specialist than the general practitioner.
Yeah, man. And like you said, that's good stuff. And you mentioned earlier, before I asked you how many people you work with, people, high net worth individuals don't particularly, it's not the price that they're looking for, it's the value you're going to deliver for whatever that price is. You could tell someone $1 million for something if you're going to deliver them $5 million worth of value, like if you're going to help them
Right.
grow their funds. Before we hop off, I feel like once again, I know you have time issues, or timing, and I don't want to abuse it. Just think about with Main Street right now. Like you said, you do live TV, local live TV, or in international, you do CNBC, you do Fox Business. You were just on it recently. What were you speaking about then? Because I imagine Main Street's feeling that same concern. And what message would you tell for the people who didn't see you on TV recently?
Well, first of all, one of the things I get asked about is, Derek, you're like the personal finance guy that helps make complex topics easy to understand. So, you've watched somebody on TV or on a podcast and they start to spout so many technical aspects of things that your eyes glaze over. You start to walk backwards. You're like, oh my gosh, this is like way over my head. What intimidates even smart people about money is how complicated so many people make it sound. Ultimately, what high net worth people want is not they're paying you by the pound of paper you print off. They're not paying you based on how many slides in your PowerPoint slide deck. They're paying you to take their complex lives and make it simple. They're paying you for bullet points of here are 3 options I looked at for you. Here are the pros and the cons of each. I know which one I think is best for you, but I want you to decide, and then we can figure that out. They'll always say, what do you recommend? Here's what I recommend. Here's the pros and the cons of it. Let's do that. And so you help take people's complex lives and you're selling simplicity. You're selling the solutions to their problems. And so what I tell advisors is just get clear on the messaging that you have. For example, I'll be doing a live tea interview later on this afternoon. Today I'm answering viewer questions. So people write in, hey, what are the questions that you've got? And so what I think about is, what can I do in probably, 1 minute or less to add them the most value, but not solve all of their life's problems. I'm simply there to give them one simple takeaway that they can use to improve their life in one of 3 ways. Can I help them make money, save money, or make their life better? And if I do that, then I've added value. And then that then becomes the tip of the spear. If they want to work with me on some other areas or part of our group coaching or mastermind or these areas, just like with advisors, just like the hungry person that says, hey, I know you're hungry, but hey, do you want to climb up that mountain real quick? No. What food would you like? Would you like to go to Chipotle or would you like to go to Salad to Go? You meet the immediate need they've got, then they trust you for higher and bigger problems.
That's great stuff, Derek. I mean, so these questions are the live questions. They're not, you won't have these beforehand, right? Like you're not, this is a live band experience. You're getting the
This
real
is live,
thing.
brother. Yeah.
I love it, man. That's great. How did you start doing live TV?
Oh, so funny story. So when I became an advisor, I was 26 and I realized I looked young, but I had this crazy idea that if I could get on TV, that could be a way for me to build my brand. People always told me I had a knack for taking complex ideas and making them easy to understand. So back in the day, we had these things called fax machines, which was the primary mode of sending things to people. So I would get to the office early and I would send a fax to the local news producers at the CBS, NBC, and then ABC affiliates here in Dallas, Fort Worth. I did that for several months and I would put topics like, hey, 3 ways to save for retirement, 4 ways to cut your debt, 5 ways to save for your kids' education. Always good to put a number in there and then the value. And I said, when you need somebody to talk about complex topics in an easy to understand way, call me. Well, what I learned was I could have practiced and then pitched. What I've learned from me, I pitch, I get the deal, then I figure out how to get ready for the deal. Okay. Better to have that sense of urgency than the other way around. So I got a call from the CBS affiliate here in Fort Worth, Dallas. Hey, Derek, we know you love to be on TV. Could you come on next week and talk about this? I said, of course, love to be on TV. Having never ever been on TV before. And so, but I knew in the confidence I had in myself, I would be ready. And I practiced talking in the mirror. I practiced having my wife interview me. And I just visualized, Marcus, as crazy as this sounds, as plain as day, I visualized when I finished that interview, the producer's going to say to me, Derek, you are made for TV. Could you come on a regular basis? The interview went great. And almost word for word, the producer said, man, Derek, that was really, really good. Could we call on you and have you come on a regular basis? And the answer was yes. But had I taken all the time to prepare, practice, and then pitch, probably wouldn't have happened. But instead, I focused on the pitch. And then once I got the deal, then I practiced to fulfill the pitch. That was the lesson that guided me for the rest of my business as a financial advisor. And now I teach that as well. So many people think I've got to have this perfect, but we know that action is better than perfection. 70% of the way, 80% of the way, you got to go and then adjust it along the way. And so now I've done TV for over 20 years. Those first interviews I thought were good. I look like a kid in kindergarten, but you just keep learning. And then you got to have a short memory. You've got to have a short memory. So if I, for example, on our time today, if I finish and I think, oh my gosh, I just bombed that conversation with Marcus and I beat myself up, everybody else listening may think that was a pretty great interview. So I'm my own worst enemy. So you got to just give it your best, pick one thing. Next time I'll do this differently. And then you incorporate that and then you move on. If not, you're going to live in regret, and regret does not lead to revenue.
Regret definitely does not lead to revenue. Perfect is definitely the enemy of just like good and getting started. Like I firmly believe, like you said there, like you have to go, right? And then you can iterate as you're going. And I think if people look at successful people in life, they generally do that. Like they generally go and then they like these world's richest, quote unquote, that's how you measure success. These type of people, they generally do that. They start and then they keep iterating. We saw Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin just blow up the other day, right? And investors and even Jeff Bezos, he was like, this sets us back. But for the people who are building those spaceships, those rockets, they like that because they don't like that it blew up, but they like that it helps them know where they need to go in and what to fix, right? That could have been with people on there and they didn't have that taken care of. So they'll take that big blow up to fix the iteration to get to where they're going to. They'll have multiple space launcher pads now, right? Like SpaceX has multiple places where you launch. They ruin one of the launcher pads. I digress. Right. Derek, I've taken a lot of your time. I really appreciate you being on here. I want you to take a second. So if anyone wants to have you on to speak, or if anyone wants to connect with you and anything you want to tell Main Street, just go ahead and let us know, man.
Yeah. Marcus, first of all, I'm honored to be on your show. I've heard other guests on your show, and when you called me and asked me, I was excited to be here. So thank you for what you've done. I've loved this conversation. A couple ways to connect with me. First of all, is through the website, which is successforadvisors.com, successforadvisors.com. And that's primarily where I get booked to speak. And I do a lot of what are called virtual events that wholesalers will hire me to deliver a message to all their advisors that helps them drive sales and revenue. Also, an easy way is to follow me on LinkedIn at Derek Kinney. And there's also on the LinkedIn piece there's a way to download a free PDF, 10 conversation mistakes advisors make, which is very, very popular. It's helped a lot of people attract more clients as well. So those would be the two best ways to connect.
Very good, very good. And anything else you want to tell Main Street other than?
No, just set goals, work hard, and just keep reassessing as you go along the path, man. We don't die before you're dead.
Got that
That's the
right. You
key.
got to live life to the fullest. And if they want to see you on live TV, do you have a rotation like every so often they can find you, or is it they just call you like, come on, we need you?
Yeah, two things. Well, I'm on live in Dallas Fort Worth every Tuesday at 4:35 Central. And I post about that typically on my Instagram, sometimes on LinkedIn. And then Fox and News Nation and CNBC, they will call as needed. though whenever there's topics that are needed, I'll get a call. So that's very more infrequent, but I love doing it. I'm in my studio right now, so I do it typically live from here, which is a lot of fun.
It's very good stuff, man. I do appreciate you being on. We didn't even talk about your book. Like, you're got to come back. You're got to come back, and
Sounds
we're going to
great.
have
Sounds
another
great.
conversation. Derek Kinney, y'all. Main Street Heart meets Wall Street Smarts. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you.